Welcome back to EtherLink AI Insights, the podcast where we unpack the critical intersection of AI strategy and regulatory reality. I'm Alex, and joining me today is Sam. We're diving into a topic that's keeping European enterprise leaders up at night: how fractional AI architects are becoming essential for EU AI Act compliance. Sam, this isn't just theoretical. We're seeing real urgency here.
Absolutely, Alex. And the numbers tell the story. We've got 73% of European enterprises that have already deployed AI chatbots and agents in production, but only 31% have documented governance policies. That's a massive gap. You're basically running cars without a highway code, and the regulators are about to start handing out tickets.
That disconnect is wild. So you've got companies moving fast with AI adoption, but they're not building the governance infrastructure to back it up. How did we get here?
Classic problem: speed versus structure. Teams get excited about AI's potential, deploy chatbots or automation tools to solve immediate business problems, and nobody's coordinating across the organization. You end up with what we call shadow AI, systems deployed in different departments with no central oversight or audit trail. Fast forward to 2026, when EU AI Act enforcement kicks in, and suddenly these companies realize they can't even document what systems they have, let alone prove they're compliant.
And the stakes aren't abstract. We're talking about fines reaching 6% of global revenue for non-compliance. That's existential for most enterprises. So what exactly does a fractional AI architect bring to the table? Isn't that just a fancy consultant?
That's where most people get it wrong. A traditional consultant comes in, writes a report, and leaves. A fractional AI architect embeds into your organization. They're not just advising on governance, they're building it. They're establishing what we call a center of excellence that provides ongoing oversight, strategic alignment, and regulatory accountability. Think of them as your internal AI CEO without the full-time executive salary.
So they're actually living inside the organization, getting their hands dirty with the day-to-day operations. What does that look like in practice?
It starts with an inventory. You'd be shocked how many enterprises can't actually tell you what AI systems they're running. A fractional AI architect will map everything: chatbots, automation workflows, generative AI tools, predictive models. Then they classify each system according to EU AI Act risk tiers: prohibited, high risk, limited risk, minimal risk. This classification isn't arbitrary. It's backed by regulatory documentation and impact assessments.
So once you've got that inventory and risk classification, what's the next move?
You design actual governance frameworks. We're talking policies for model selection, data governance, human oversight mechanisms, bias detection protocols, incident response procedures. The fractional architect also establishes accountability: who owns what decision, what the escalation paths are, where responsibility sits. It's an operating system for AI decision-making across your enterprise.
I love that framing. Governance isn't compliance theater. It's the infrastructure that actually lets you innovate safely. Speaking of innovation, there's been a huge shift in how enterprises are thinking about AI investment, right?
Exactly. Gartner's latest data shows that 48% of enterprise AI investment decisions now prioritize governance, risk, and compliance capabilities. Compare that to 2021, when it was only 22%. That's more than doubling in 3 years. We're moving from an experiment and see what sticks mindset to operationalize responsibly at scale. That shift is reshaping budgets, procurement decisions, and organizational structures.
So the market is signaling that governance isn't a checkbox. It's a competitive advantage. But this is particularly acute for companies in Europe, especially the Netherlands and places like Eindhoven.
Absolutely. The EU AI Act is the strictest regulatory framework globally, and the enforcement timeline is tightening. By 2026, high-risk systems need transparency documentation, audit trails, and human oversight mechanisms. European enterprises can't wait and hope the regulations get watered down. They need to move now, and that's where a fractional AI architect becomes invaluable.
Let's get specific. If I'm a mid-sized tech company in Eindhoven and I'm thinking about bringing in a fractional AI architect, what's the first thing they'd actually do?
Readiness scan. You need to understand your starting point. That means evaluating your current AI systems, governance maturity, compliance posture, and organizational readiness. We're talking about a structured assessment across multiple dimensions: technical debt, policy gaps, skill gaps, regulatory knowledge, and operational processes.
And from that readiness scan, you'd build a roadmap?
Exactly. A phased roadmap that prioritizes high-risk systems first, builds governance incrementally, and ties everything back to business value. You're not just checking regulatory boxes, you're improving operational efficiency, reducing AI-related incidents, improving model performance monitoring, and ultimately protecting shareholder value.
One thing I'm curious about, how does this approach differ across different industries? Is the governance framework the same for everyone?
No, and that's critical. A financial services company deploying lending models faces different risks and regulatory scrutiny than a logistics company optimizing routes. HR systems have specific requirements around discrimination and transparency. The fractional architect understands these nuances and tailors the governance framework accordingly. They're not applying a one-size-fits-all playbook. They're building something that fits your business context and regulatory exposure.
So the ROI argument is interesting here too. You're investing in governance, but you're actually getting operational benefits beyond just compliance.
That's the whole point. Better governance means you're monitoring models more effectively, catching drift earlier, reducing bias-related incidents, improving model performance benchmarking, and eliminating redundant AI implementations. You're centralizing data governance, which improves data quality. You're reducing operational risk. These aren't compliance benefits. They're business benefits that justify the investment entirely separate from avoiding fines.
Let's talk timeline for a second. If I'm starting from scratch, how long does it typically take to get to a reasonable state of governance maturity?
It depends on your starting point and organizational complexity, but typically we're talking 6 to 18 months to reach functional maturity. The first 90 days are critical. You're doing the readiness scan, defining the governance framework, and getting buy-in from leadership. Then you're rolling out policies, training teams, implementing monitoring systems. It's not something that happens overnight, but it's also not a multi-year consulting engagement. A good fractional architect can accelerate it significantly.
And I imagine the fractional model is attractive partly because you're not committing to a permanent executive hire if you're not sure you need one long-term.
Exactly. You get experienced AI leadership embedded in your organization, building governance infrastructure, but you have flexibility. Some enterprises find that once governance is mature, they transition the role to an internal leader. Others extend the fractional engagement because the complexity of AI systems keeps evolving. The model is flexible, and that's part of what makes it practical.
So if someone's listening to this and thinking, we should probably be doing this, what's the first step?
Honestly, schedule a readiness conversation. You don't need to commit to a year-long engagement. Talk to someone who understands EU AI Act compliance, your industry, and your specific AI landscape. Get a sense of where your gaps are, what your risk profile looks like, and what maturation actually costs. That conversation costs nothing and saves you from making assumptions.
Great advice. And for folks who want to dive deeper into this topic, explore the full article on etherlink.ai. You'll find detailed frameworks, assessment criteria, and real-world examples of how enterprises are approaching this. Thanks so much for walking through this with me, Sam.
Thanks, Alex. This is genuinely critical stuff. Enterprises that act now will have a massive advantage in 2026. Those that wait, they'll be scrambling.
That's EtherLink AI Insights. We'll be back soon with more conversations at the intersection of AI strategy and enterprise reality. Thanks for listening.